Hey USA, it's just me, and as you know, I'm nobody, just an American. And this is Just an American Moment. This is the podcast where we ask the questions the mainstream media won't ask, and we provide the answers and solutions that the political class either can't or won't answer. So, welcome, welcome, welcome. Anyhow, I had a lot of topics that I was thinking about doing for this week, but for some reason, and it must be because of the uh, things I've been reading lately, various articles and such, that I've really been hung up on being an American and American patriotism. And I started asking my question, where has American patriotism gone? I mean, where has it gone? At my darkest point, and I got pretty low thinking about this because I watch what I see on TV and it really concerns me. At my darkest point, I thought about one of the scenes from the movie Gladiator, where they were talking about what is Rome and what has happened to Rome. And I ended up taking a quote from that movie. It's a line that Senator Gracchus says, and I turned it around and it applied it to America. And this is how it goes. I think we all know what America is. America has become the mob. Create something for them to hate, and they'll be distracted. Take away their freedom, and they'll follow you like lemmings. The beating heart of the USA is no longer our Constitution and our patriotism. It is the lies the media tells, and it is the hubris of the political class. They will bring about the death of our republic, and the lemmings will love them for it. Now, that's a pretty low point to get to when you really start thinking of our country in those terms, but it is something that is a real concern. Isn't it time? Isn't it time that we start thinking of ourselves, all of us, as Americans again? I mean, being white in America doesn't make you an American. Being black in America doesn't make you an American. Being pink, yellow, or orange doesn't make you being an American, and we could all be red, white, and blue. And that's not what would make us Americans. It's the Declaration of Independence. It's our Constitution. It's our founding documents, things like the Federalist Papers, that anchor us in our Americanism. It is our ability to undo wrongs around the world, our ability to defeat tyrants that makes us Americans. It is the uniqueness of the American people and the concept of e pluribus unum that make us Americans. It is our ability to achieve excellence and exceptionalism that makes us Americans. It is our love and our compassion for our fellow man that makes us Americans. And it is our love of country that makes us Americans. On one hand, being an American is so much more. And yet at the same time, it's so simple. You know, when you're abroad and you hear an American voice, you don't look to see what their ethnicity is. You don't see what their race is. You don't ask what their political affiliation is. You are glad because you see an American, someone you have a common background in, someone who's anchored in the same principles you believe that you're anchored in. And I can tell you, I've been in some pretty remote spots in the world where all of a sudden I hear an American voice, and I am so thankful to have an opportunity to speak with a person who has so much in common with me. It is so important. And you know, when you're on the battlefield, there are things that divide us, but they don't come up on the battlefield. I mean, there are those today who would divide us into factions who want to break us down based on religion, based on ethnicity, based on political affiliation. Well, when you're in battle, all those things become irrelevant. The reality is that you and the guy in the foxhole with you are fighting for the same common cause. And to use the cliche, in the end, we all bleed red. This is where the spirit of patriotism is on full display. Patriotism is now under assault. It's under assault in our schools, it's under assault in our businesses, it's under assault in our cities like Seattle, Portland, Chicago, New York, and many other places. Even our ability to speak freely is now under assault. And if that's the case, it means our Constitution and our entire country are under assault. This assault is coming from many, many directions. One is from the Leninists within the political class. The Leninists are the ones who always talk about putting party first. And you know who they are. Listen to them speak. The ones who are telling you, oh, the party will do this for you and the party will do that for you. Those are the Leninists within the political class. We're also hearing it from a compliant media, a media who perpetuates half-truths and all-out lies, for some trying to advance a Marxist agenda. And then there are the anarchists, like Antifa and BLM, who falsely claim that they are working for the underclass, when in point of fact, they support the mob, they support the lemmings, and they love the chaos that comes with it. They don't care about America. They are all those who wish to destroy what is good and exceptional about the United States of America. The majority of us are nobodies, just Americans. So I ask you, is this what we really want? Do we want to cede all political power to Washington and to the administrative state? Do we want to cede our streets to the anarchists? Do we want to cede our right to free speech to those who would manipulate it or ban it completely? Do we want our children indoctrinated with teachings like critical race theory? Do we want children to grow up hating one another because of it? Do we want this country divided into factions? Or do we want this country to be rooted in e pluribus unum, out of many one? We want it to mean something again. I recently read an article by the journalist Chris Rufo, and he talked about critical race theory. And he said that these ideas, and I quote, are in total conflict with equality and justice. Fundamentally, he said that they are Marxism on steroids. So I know you're all asking, what do? Right? Well, we re-engage. If your parents, if your grandparents, we engage with the school. We find out what they're teaching and what they intend to teach. We don't let our children be influenced by these negative thoughts. We push Congress as hard as we can, and both within our states as well as at the federal level, for term limits. It's a must. We can't be having this country continue to be ruled by anachronisms, and that's what we're ruled by. We need to look at social media companies and those who would ban speech. Remember, those in social media require eyes. They require the number of hits of people looking at their sites. If they start to ban speech, no matter how great the temptation, we need to stop viewing. We need to find alternatives. We also need to create alternatives. We need to stop viewing sites that hamper our free expression. Most importantly, We need to teach our children what it truly means to be a patriot. And that's an interesting question. What does it truly mean to be a patriot? So I'd like to share a little personal story with you. This is one I've told to a handful of people, but I feel like sharing it publicly now. As I've mentioned in prior podcasts, I've worked considerably in China, extensively. And I've been involved with setting up manufacturing facilities in various parts of China. At one time, I was involved with a project. I was living in Hong Kong. I had manufacturing facilities in Hong Kong, and I had manufacturing facilities in mainland China, in the region of Dongguan. And as a result of that, I would on occasion meet with members of the Communist Party, who obviously control most of the activities in the region, particularly as it relates to production. And there was one gentleman who was a regional party head who I would have dinner with on occasion. And the dinners were always very interesting. He was an interesting man. He had traveled the world. We would talk about things like politics. We would talk about the space program. We would talk about our families. We talked about things that we both enjoyed, like fly fishing in Montana. There were always interesting discussions. But one night we were just touching a bit on politics. And as we neared the end of the dinner, he turned to me and he looked at me quite seriously and he said, "Harry, are you a patriot?" And that was a very interesting question because of all the countries I've been in and all the people I've worked with, no one ever asked me that question. Am I a patriot? And I really was kind of stopped short, but I gave it some thought and I looked at him and I said, if being a patriot means believing in the founding documents of your nation, if it means believing in the people of your nation, if it means believing that you've lived and worked in the most exceptional country in the world and that you would be willing to die for it, I said, yes, I'm a patriot, if that's what it means. And it was extremely interesting. He paused for a moment. He hung his head low. And then he looked up at me. And he said, "Harry, this is the problem with China. We have no patriots." And I don't know how many of you understand this, but that is a profound comment. Profound. And it's something I will never forget. So think about it. So to close today, I would just like to paraphrase one more line from Gladiator, and this is between Maximus and Caesar. "So you ask, what is the United States? And I answer, I've seen much of the rest of the world. It is brutal, it is cruel, and it is dark. The United States is the light. We must never, ever give up our patriotism. Without it, the bad guys win." Thanks for listening. Please remember my book. If you enjoy these podcasts, please pass it on. I'd appreciate it. The book talks about a lot of these things. Have a good week. Thanks so much.